Welcome to the Oppo Live Beyond series, where we are looking at the stories of ordinary South Africans who found a way to turn a challenge into a unique opportunity. I'm your host, Lebo Lion, entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and I'm excited to be taking you through this special edition episode where we are profiling 3 phenomenal women who've been able to traverse industries, generations, backgrounds, and careers. Each is doing something that pushes them into the spotlight for others to watch, learn from, and resonate with. Grab your cup of tea and join us as we celebrate Women's Month the Oppo way. And what better way to celebrate Women's Month than with a panel with 3 phenomenal women, all from different industries and walks of life, coming to share their journeys and stories with us. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lebo.
You all look so beautiful. I can't wait to get into today's conversation because the 3 of you are powerhouses in your own respect. You know, you have dominated the industries that you're in. You're young, you're beautiful, some of you are mothers, some of you are wives, you know, you're sisters, you are full human beings, and you've been able to achieve what you've been able to achieve. And I want to start off this conversation by introductions. I want our audience to get to know you so they can understand why I'm saying you're powerhouses. So let's start with you, Doreen. Please tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone at home, my name is Doreen Mokoena. I'm the CEO and founder of Cybersec Clinic. It's a software engineering firm in Foy's, and we specialize in software engineering, cybersecurity, and digital technologies.
We had a conversation before we started recording this podcast with Doreen, and you guys can't even comprehend the things that she's doing. I can't wait to unpack your story and so much more. Avashnee, please introduce yourself.
I'm Avashnee Moodley. I'm the head of marketing at Oppo South Africa, and I've been in the technology industry for the last 8 years.
But you're not telling us everything in that story because you come from a very different background to the marketing and comp space.
I actually studied journalism. I was a sports lover and I wanted to be a sports reporter, work for Sky Sports and Manchester United, but my career path took a total different journey. And I'm very excited about the journey. I never thought I would be in this environment, but in especially the technology industry, but I've learned a lot over the last few years and I've grown to love it. So I don't think I would change anything about my journey, and I firmly believe that things happen for a reason and your journey can be rerouted and your career at any time. So it doesn't mean if you study something at university that you go into that career path. So I think there's lots of opportunities and we just need to grab it.
I love what Avashnee said, and she speaks about pivoting, right? That you're not tied to what you studied or the first job that you had, but you can actually do anything you put your mind to because the world is full of opportunities. And our last guest, please introduce yourself, Esha.
Thanks, Lebo. First of all, it's fantastic to be here. Great opportunity to wake up, dress up, show up. So I'm Esha Mansingh. I'm the Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Imperial. Some of you may know it as Imperial Logistics, one of Africa's leading logistics businesses. Currently the first and only female on its executive committee, and hoping that will change so we can get more female representation in the world of logistics. Previously mining and now 7 years in logistics. Outside of Imperial, I do a lot of work in the women empowerment space to be an advocate for this change that we're talking about in terms of changing the narrative in male-dominated industries. I was also very proud to be recently recognized as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum, class of 2022. And thank you, and one of only 11 in Africa. So I feel very passionately about advocating for the African continent and women in Africa. And beyond that, a mom of 2 beautiful young kids, a wife of also a very busy husband, and also formerly an award-winning journalist and a TV presenter. I still don't do a good job as well as you do, but it's great to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Esha. I love your energy, and your journey is also pretty phenomenal. So there's a lot to unpack here and we've got very little time. And I want to start our conversation off somewhere quite unconventional. And it might make some of you roll your eyes because if I was a man sitting here, I might ask you that question first. But I want to talk about your role as mothers and building your careers. How has that impacted your drive for success, how you navigate through the corporate landscape. And the reason why I want to start the conversation here is because I want people to understand that we are people before we are our careers, right? And so the reason why we have to advocate for women in the corporate space is because we are people who have these lives, and these lives impact how we do what we do. So I'm putting the question out for anyone who wants to take it, but let's start there. Being a mother, being a wife, being a woman, and navigating through the space.
I'll jump in here. And I think for me, it always starts with the personal purpose, right? And, from the career that I've chosen, to the life journey that I'm currently on, it was really about what is my purpose, starting with Esha, even before mom. And I think that's really shaped me to be the person that I am today and to be able to navigate the various roles. And one of the biggest things, and it sounds a bit cliched, but it's something I believe in, is that it's not just about succeeding in the man's world or in the world in general, but it's about the impact that I can make as an individual. And this is where mamahood, as we call it, has become so special to me, because I believe that, the place that you actually start making a difference first is at home. And, when you empower your kids, you empower the leaders of tomorrow. And this is why being a mom is so special to me, because my value system and the value system that I want to instill starts with my kids. And beyond that, I then expand it into the workplace, etc. And because that's where I can make the most immediate difference. And I think beyond that, as you move into the career and how you manage and try to find this balance with all the roles we play, quite frankly, I don't believe the balance exists. I believe that you have to prioritize, and whatever role you're playing at a point in time, you have to be present. So when you're being a mom, your kids don't expect you to be with them 24/7, but when you're with them for the 1 hour in the evenings or the 2 hours in the morning, be present. And I think through that principle, I've managed to be able to maintain some kind of sanity, not balance, sanity, and still manage to follow my dreams that I've set out for myself as an individual in the workplace and in other things that I feel passionately about.
I love what you're saying, and you spoke about the concept of balance and the fact that it doesn't exist, and that's okay, right? Because as women, we often try to balance and juggle everything, and it's okay that we can't, because it's not possible. Doreen, earlier on we were speaking about how people judge you for having children, being pregnant, being married. Let's talk about that. What's your experience?
Actually where I come from, within the tech space, I come from compliance, governance. I come from hackathons, I come from, choosing to be part of the red team or the black team, and choosing, to actually choose between, whether you want to work within the dark space or the surface web. It's very difficult, to actually present yourself as a woman in tech, because now men confuse that as bravery, as opposed to being knowledgeable in what you do. Because I have had a whole lot of people, especially when I do podcasts or when I'm on TV or I'm on radio, and they would go to Twitter and be like, okay, this Doreen chick is very brave, but I think she doesn't have a clue what she's talking about, because these are not how things are supposed to be run. And the reason why men are saying that is because they don't think that we can equally execute tasks the way that they do, And I just had a baby. My baby's like 5 months now. And I had instances whereby I had to go to clients, with a very huge tummy, and they would ask me if I'm able to deploy a program, if I'm able to run a test code, in my condition. And that would actually, exactly, as if like I'm sick or something, because me being pregnant, I'm actually growing a little life inside of me. It doesn't take away my abilities or what I've grown to know. So it's very problematic, because now, especially in tech, they expect you to look a specific way. You're not allowed to be this gorgeous, you need to wear hoodies all the time and sneakers, in which we do dress like that, but it's not embedded in us to look like that. It's something that we choose to do it, but it's not us. It's how the world has perceived us. And it's unfortunate that the status quo is a woman in tech needs to look this specific way, and you're not supposed to look this way. And that's questioning everything that you do when you produce your work.
Avashnee, you've also been in a very male-dominated space, the sports space. And have you found that women will be the ones who perpetuate these conversations of this is how you should look, this is what we expect from you, or do you get it from men, or a mix of both?
I think it's a mix of both. And one thing that I've learned over the last few years, or the last 2 years, is women need to support women more. And I think once we start doing that in our various industries, there'll be more seats at the table. Because when we do get there, I find sometimes we don't have the support of our own gender. And that's something very important. And especially now with the tech industry, it was very closely guarded, and it's slowly beginning to open up to more genders, especially as a woman. You see more women in the industry, and that's important for me, not to just be known as a female, but be known as an expert in the industry and not let gender define me.
I love that you spoke about expertise, and it makes me think about leadership, and all three of you are leaders in your own companies and the divisions that you run. Let's talk about that, what it is to be a leader, a female leader in a space that's run by men, or where the authority predominantly comes from men. Let's talk about that leadership as a woman in 2022.
I think that almost 9 years being in this space, before I became a CEO of Cybersec Clinic, I actually used to hold one of the prestigious positions, in the internet space in South Africa. I was a director of internet governance for the country, and people believe, especially men, they believe that I can deliver. After my accolades, I received Mail and Guardian Women Changing South Africa in 2019. Then it was Mail and Guardian 200 Young South Africans. Then it was like South Africa's Top Geek of the Year. And it was Women in Tech under 50, up until I received the title of Top Women in Cybersecurity in Africa. I was number 24. That's when the industry started welcoming me, because now it's as if like these accolades kind of escalated my drive, and it showed everybody that she is able and she's capable of doing this. But in all honesty, it's very difficult to position yourself as a woman in tech. In fact, it's difficult to be a woman in this country, over and above all the other social ills that we face. But proving yourself that you can lead a company, you can lead people, it has proved to be very difficult. But we really deconstruct these patriarchal mentalities every day, and we're working towards that.
Lebo, I have to do a high five.
Yes.
All those titles, right?
And when you say it's difficult, what do you mean? What is so difficult about it?
I've interviewed a couple of industry heads, when I opened my company, and I opened it in 2020. And our total revenue was very skyrocketing, and what we have done in the industry, because we built software for minds, and I mean, like, being a woman in tech, everybody knows that South Africa, it's not prone to software that is built in the country. They would rather go buy it in India or in China or anywhere. So something that is built into this country, deployed and used, it's something very huge. And it's been proven to be very difficult for me, because now I have to go to this company and say, listen, this is my software. It's not from Stack Overflow. It's something that I constructed. It's something that I architectured from the ground up, and it's working. So it's been difficult, and the highs were very highs and the lows were equally low, because of the fact that I'm a woman. To a point whereby one executive said, why don't you hire a male? Let the male lead while you sit back and you make decisions. So this is part of the social biases that we need to break as women. Yeah.
Esha, I know you're somebody who's really pioneering and leading the change in terms of corporates incorporating the female experience into their policy and into how they do things. Please, can you share some of the things that you've done?
Sure, and I think, Lebo, it starts off really with, the qualities we need to embrace as women leadership. And I think, to the earlier point that was made, sometimes, we are our own worst enemies, because we expect ourselves to compete with men where it's not necessarily the case. The leadership qualities and attributes that we bring to the table, and COVID, I mean, a lot of the companies that didn't just survive but thrived in COVID was because they had a fantastic cohort of female leadership that brought to the table things like empathy. You know, some of these leadership qualities, you know, we didn't even talk about or hear about a few years ago. You know, as the world is changing and the successes of businesses are becoming more redefined, it's not just about profit and about the hard issues anymore. It's about being able to manage the soft issues hard. And that's what we as women do well. And I think this is where we always need to take a step back. And when you are given the opportunity to be in a position as women in leadership, okay, well, actually not given the opportunity, when you take the opportunity to be in a position of leadership, you know, you need to embrace these qualities. It's not a competition, right? Use your leadership style and use these strengths that we have to create real opportunity for others, which was spoken about earlier. You know, we don't do enough. We always find that the responsibility sits on the men in our business. You know, they should bring in more women, or they should allow us. No, if you're in that position, start there. And I think that's what, you know, that was my starting point in terms of being in logistics and being in a position of influence, where I decided to start by putting my hand up and saying that I'm not HR, but diversity and inclusion and creating an empowering culture as a leader of the business is also my responsibility. And so, you know, I took on the responsibility together with the CEO of the business as well as the board, because I find that the narrative of this nature, for it to become really successful in the business, you need to have the backing at the highest level. Because you always have the subconscious bias, and not everyone's going to back it unless they really have to. And through this, you know, we started to implement in baby steps, small initiatives that have grown to scale, something like implementing a global women's forum for Imperial with over 25,000 people. It was literally just empowering women in the business across 26 countries to stand up and have a voice, to start by speaking up and addressing problems that were relevant to them as individuals in their businesses, and saying these have been challenges and let's work together with our male counterparts to find solutions. And we started off, like I said, you know, in simple scales of putting together maternity feeding rooms for new moms that could, you know, use an office that was converted with a couch and a fridge where they could express milk at lunchtime or take a bit of a nap if they had newly born babies. It cost the business nothing. All it required was for a forum, for people to feel safe, to raise these concerns and find solutions, most importantly. And this Global Women's Forum has grown to the magnitude of now we're starting to target the real hard social issues, where we're talking about diversity and inclusion around gender parity gaps. You know, what can medical aid cover to support women? So it gradually progressed, and outside of Imperial, the women now feel empowered to support the women in their communities, to extend the work we've been doing around gender-based violence and COVID support groups and finding solutions and empowering each other and upskilling each other, to now going into their communities and saying, well, let's just extend this now to the women in our communities, and hopefully we can create a future pipeline through the women in our communities to come and work for our business. And, you know, and then it naturally just spirals on if you get it right. And I think, you know, I always say to female leadership, do not be that queen bee. You know, there's that queen bee syndrome, because it's great. I mean, it's great to sit up there and get all these accolades about being the first woman or woman in tech or whatever it is, but it's not good enough. If you want to be the only woman up there, you have failed as a leader. Exactly. And this is why we have to take the initiative to create opportunities for others to follow.
I love what you just said. I mean, I wish I could high five you from here, because it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And you know, you spoke about the gender parity gap, and I think that's a great place for us to start from with this conversation that I'm about to bring in. Because a lot of people see women like us sitting, talking, and they're thinking, Women's Month, they're just complaining, or this is just a conversation for women. I'm not gonna listen. They're probably just, you know, talking about how much they hate men or whatever the case may be. So let's make this contextual and factual for people to understand why it's important for us to be having these conversations. Why do we need diversity and inclusivity? Why do women have to talk about their experiences in corporate? Why is this an important conversation?
In fact, Lebo, I like the fact that you asked that question, you know. There's also another elephant in the room that we also need to dissect, you know. Over and above being a woman in a very dominated area, there's also an issue when it comes to women underrepresentation and payments, you know, when it comes to compensation. It's no joke and no hidden agenda that we are paid less than men. You know, I don't know if maybe our pay grade has anything to do with our menstrual cycle or with our moods, but I feel like if I'm capable, if I have the very same qualification as my male counterpart, why is it difficult for you to offer me what I'm entitled to? You know, I mean, I've seen it, you know, I've seen it and I've experienced it myself, that maybe my male counterpart will get 20 cents more and I will get 50 cents less. You understand? And these are the issues that we tend to face. And it's very difficult for us then to say, okay, let's break the gender gap. Let's create a space for more women to come into this industry. And how do we then bridge the digital divide if we ourselves are still fighting in terms of payments, you know? If you know, my benefits are not as equal as men. I've seen companies, you know, they have what they call masculine day, where men take time. Masculine day. Yeah, you know, they take time to go relax, you know, to tone down. Then why can't we have a cleansing day where we take time to go relax when we're on our periods? You know, I mean, like, why is it that they've been given more appreciation? Not that we hate men, we don't hate men, we love men, all of us here are married, but honestly and truly, when it comes to the industry and deconstructing, you know, these male and in all these patriarchal standards, it's a journey that all of us have to get into. And I don't want my kids, especially my daughter, you know, in the next coming 5 years, when she start getting into the space, to deal with these same issues. If I can deal with them right now, let's just create a paveway for them to strive without, you know, having issues that have to do with, you know, domination and, you know, and biases and all of these issues.
Ladies, I wish we had more time because there's so much to unpack, but thank you so much for joining us. I think this is a really special podcast, and thank you to Oppo for making this happen. We need these stories to be amplified. We need these conversations to be amplified. And thank you for being brave enough to share your stories. Guys, thank you for tuning in. And I think the key takeaway from this podcast and this conversation is be brave, be bold, show up, lean into your femininity, and dress the part. Until next time, goodbye.